Hello everybody and welcome back to another video from the League of Dracula 2025, and we got something a little bit different for you today. We have some post-game analysis of a match that took place yesterday between Ghostwheel playing as the Hunters and Roythe11th playing as Dracula. I still don't know what happened to the previous 10 Roys, but never mind. And yeah, this is actually footage that was provided to me by Ghostwheel. Ghostwheel streamed their perspective live on Twitch. I'll leave links down below in the description for Ghostwheel's Twitch, as well as all of the other people who record games from the Fury of Dracula community, so you can go and check them all out. And there wasn't a spectator perspective of this match for whatever reason. That's okay, it doesn't have to be. And I started actually watching this game last night, but partly because of the time that was taking place. I was watching around 1 a.m. my time. But I suddenly realised, oh, if there's no third-person perspective, we could do some post-game analysis, especially since this is between two newcomers to the Fury of Dracula community in terms of participating in tournaments, at least. Sometimes this happens if you haven't seen any of these videos before. Even though we normally try to do the spectator perspectives live, just so we can get some interaction with chat and get some more raw reactions and emotions. Sometimes I do like to do these post-game analysis because then we can sort of break down the game a bit more. We can pause the recording. Obviously, you can't do that when it's live, but yeah, with this perspective, I can pause the recording, go into a lot more detail about what the players are doing, especially the person whose perspective we're watching. That really helps with this sort of thing where you can actually see the hand of the player that you're watching, and you can work out what things they should or shouldn't be doing. So that's what we're going to do, especially since Ghostwheel is playing as the Hunters here, and you know me as much as I will happily play both sides. I'm a little bit more known as a hunter player, so we can we can sort of break down the hunter play here. I have no idea what the result is. I think I watched about until the end of the first week, more or less, and then I decided, well, partly because of time, and also if I do the spectator perspective, I don't really want to know the result of the game, so I'll be learning the result with you here today. We'll see what happens. As I was watching it, I was making certain assumptions about what could happen, so it'd be interesting to see if those things play out or not. When we watch back to the perspective here, I've muted Ghostwheel's stream, not because I don't want to. I can hear Ghostwheel's voice as they're talking over the actions that they're doing. But I've muted it for you guys just so then you don't have to hear that. Just in case I talk over the top of it, but it will be interesting to hear Ghostwheel's perspective. If there's anything in particular that Ghostwheel says that I think is important, I can pause and repeat it, and we can chat about it. And also, just in case anybody's watching this, especially newcomers to the community, Ghostwheel did give me permission to view this and to do the post-game sort of perspective of it. And also, these post-game analyses are not meant to be harsh critiques, even though I think it's just natural that I will be critiquing the play. I will always be looking for positives as well. It's not just looking for criticism's sake. And obviously, I always admit with these commentaries, whether they're post-game analysis or not, that I'm viewing it from a perspective of privilege, partly because of the amount of experience that I have. But I still remember what it was like when I first played and how many losses I had. But also the fact that I'm not the one playing the game, right? And as such, I don't have to worry about the raw emotion and the stress of having, winning or losing the game. Plus, then also the fact that Ghostwheel is showing the game publicly as well. That's another step as well, knowing that there'll be people watching either in the in-game spectate mode, but also then on Twitch as well. So full credit to Ghostwheel for doing that, and also for both Ghostwheel and Roythe11th for participating in the tournament. And so far they seem to be doing well and have the right attitude about it. So that's great to see. We'll go more into that in a second. So without further ado, let's get into the game, shall we? Okay, so we're just going into the pre-game lobby here. While they're going through all the initial setup and stuff, I can talk about the players a little bit more. As I said, they're both newcomers to the community and the tournament setup. So Ghostwheel just said immediately that hunters are hard, and they are. Hunters have an. I mean, winning as Dracula against a really experienced hunter player is also hard, but yeah, especially as a newcomer, the learning curve of the hunters is much steeper. So it's partly why I wanted to do this analysis as well. Both players are 1-2 so far in the tournament. They both won a game, which is fantastic to see. It's really good when because of the nature of the way the league is set up, it is possible for even an experienced player to have a few early defeats. Um, but it's good that you can get an early win just to sort of gain that confidence and then not constantly have to stare at the league table and see yourself near the bottom with no wins, right, and wondering where the first win's going to come from. The league structure, because you're given 7 random opponents initially, and there's no seeding involved, you can end up with really difficult opponents early on. So Ghostwheel has decided to use the superhero setup here, which is very interesting. There's nothing really to critique from that perspective. I'm not quite sure why Ghostwheel has chosen this setup specifically. I actually should have checked the previous recording that Ghostwheel did, unless it's not available anymore on Twitch, to see if Ghostwheel used superhero start in the other Hunter game. That he's played so far. I'm not sure actually. Don't know. There's nothing really to critique about that. I mean, in the video that I made about Hunter setups, plug, you can find that on the channel in the strategy and tips and tricks playlist. There are weaknesses to every Hunter setup, so you know I don't like the superhero setup for certain reasons, but at the same time, the setup that I normally use has weaknesses too. So you know that's not really a big deal. It might influence how Dracula plays, but then you just have to adapt to it. My advice to new players would be maybe just stick with one setup. Don't chop and change all the time, unless it's a setup that is clearly awful. But in the case of you've got the setup that I use, the setup that Pizza Wizard uses, the superhero setup here, and also now there's like the trio setup, as I'm calling it, the one we've got Godalming and Seward and Mina all together in Munich. I think if you use any of those 4, I think they're all very viable. There might be others too, but I think if you just stick with a setup, and you'll just over time get used to its strengths and weaknesses. I think that's really, if you just chop and change all the time, then it's very easy to sort of start equating results based upon the setup rather than other aspects of the game, right? Because there's so many aspects of this game. You've got the item distribution, event distribution, Dracula's starting location, all the future combats that happen, and goodness what else, right? So it's just, you just need to just play with one setup and just stick to it and just get used to it, and I think that's fine. So yeah, superhero setup, Godalming and Sword will be strong, which is nice. Obviously, you're missing out on the Mina Psychic scans, but early on, that's maybe not such a big deal. Okay, early rumor token here from Roy. That's good. Just to put the pressure on. I mean, full disclosure, I do know where the sign location is, but obviously won't say. You can all put your predictions in chat, what you think it might be, but putting down an early rumor token can be very good. Just to put the pressure on your opponent. Okay, yep. Good scout checks there. There's nothing wrong with that. Checking eastern extremities are good. There are other extremities you can check, but Vallona's a good one because it'll probably be on the trail of its Athens. Constanta's still a good one to go for anyway. Okay, speed telegraphs. Yep, double speed telegraph can be a bit awkward, but it's okay. Good to have it. Okay, not adjacent to any hunters. That's good, so you know that there's probably not immediate shenaniganry beside Bina. Although now Dracula might take advantage of that and go beside Bina, because the chance of you drawing a second one is a lot less likely. Ghostwheel's just doing, normal stuff, supplying during the day, night time, horse economy. stuff. So that's, or ticket economy rather, to get the horse economy set up. Double white ones already, really nice. So yeah, all good things so far. Yeah, Ghostwheel has. I know Ghostwheel has said to me that he's watched a lot of the previous tournament videos. Yeah, you're in the hot seat, Ghostwheel. You're the one under scrutiny. That's okay. All looking good so far. The fundamentals are there. That's good. That's very good. Very good. Two of the white ones already. It's nice. So yeah, I think as hunters, I keep saying this in a lot of videos recently, but as hunters, you just have to supply a lot in the first week, of course, and as the items, the events fall for you, that will tell you a lot about what you're able to do and what you're not able to do. You might have to make concessions if certain things don't go your way. And that's where a lot of the skill then comes in about knowing what you're not able to do, is also in terms of what you are able to do with the events and things that you have. I think it's maybe harder to work out what you're not able to do. And you got to make sure that in the second and third week you don't just default and autopilot into a certain way of playing, because then you might get exploited if there's certain events that you would normally use or need and you don't have them, or certain events to get you out of trouble. I was listening to what Ghostwheel was saying. Yep. Good. Good. Double stake in the east. It's a bit awkward, but it is what it is. Yeah, already saying that Godami's going to trade the white ones across the Seward. That makes a lot of sense. Just then, Godami can then just keep getting tickets. I'd probably just give both to Seward. Okay, this is kind of interesting. I just want to pause here just so then the game doesn't run away from me. Ghostwheel's making a point here about Roy's not misdirecting this space, and Ghostwheel was saying, "Oh, you normally misdirect this because obviously Dracula's first location doesn't have an encounter." Ghostwheel said that's for balance reasons, because it'd be too unfair if Dracula put down an encounter immediately. I don't know if that's actually true. I don't actually know why the game is designed that way. I assume it's a balance thing, but it's a very strange rule. To suddenly have this exception, like, oh, only on the first turn you don't put an encounter, or the first location, rather. I guess it's the way it's written, right, with Dracula's turn is you place a location and an encounter, whereas they say with a setup, Dracula chooses locations. I guess they are kind of separate. But we saw that in the tabletop showcase of the third edition, and I don't think the rules are different in the third edition. Will Wheaton clearly played an encounter card on the starting location. So it is a very easy rule to mix up. So it's one of those things where maybe there was an intention there for balance, but it's a bit inconsistent. It's very easy to get wrong, I think. So that's a bit of an interesting one. The reason, yeah, Ghostwheel's made a good point here. The reason why most Dracula players misdirect that first location is because obviously that location gives you no value initially. The hunters could just use newspapers to find it. So then they found out the trail a day earlier than they would do normally if it's newspapers was drawn right now. Or if you use the Dawn or Dusk prompt of newspaper when it gets to day 5, or on the 5th space of the trail, rather. So it means that that card activates sooner. If it's hide scouts, then it's just an additional location on the board that could be found. I feel the meta is shifting on this a little bit. When I was playing, in the first couple of leagues, I think it was very much like, no, you misdirect every single time. Now, I think the meta is a little bit more fluid, and there are a lot of Dracula players who don't misdirect initially, because they're maybe contemplating the possibility of layer it, because the thing is that you can layer this location, right? If you misdirect it, the location's gone. But if you keep this location on the trail, once it slides off, you can layer it. So that gives you two advantages if you layer your initial sign location. A, it improves your encounter economy just by a little bit. That's an additional card going out of your hand, more likely to draw a stronger one, or something that you need. Or, as we've seen in other games as well, if it's a location that's quite prominent on the map or easy for Dracula to get back to if Dracula's going around in circles, Dracula could layer it and then return to it immediately, and then you've got this double encounter location on the board. Rumor it, then the hunters might really struggle to deal with, say, a double vampire encounter like that, especially depending on what side of the board it is, if there's only one stake over there, so on, right? If you're watching the item discard pile. So there are reasons why you don't want to misdirect this. I would say it's not as clear cut as it used to be, but yeah, if I'm teaching a brand new Dracula player, I will just say misdirect your initial sign location because the hunters will find it harder to find you. Assuming timing of events and things work out. But then once you go up to like the next level or the next level of Dracula play, then you might think, well, maybe I don't want to misdirect it because I want to gain some sort of advantage, right? The other reason could be is if this is a location like Strasbourg and here or Geneva, somewhere with lots of connections, if the hunters discover that location, okay, that's great, but then how are they going to find the space after it without a lot of moving, okay? And then if it's something like Strasbourg where there's a lot of connections around it, it might be really hard for them to find this rumor token. They've blown the newspaper on a location that actually doesn't tell them a huge amount. It all depends on timing and stuff. It all depends on, and sometimes you, as Dracula, you'll plan your trail a certain way, and then you'll plan the trail as if newspapers is going to trigger a certain time, but then newspapers isn't drawn. So then you have to adapt your trail and your later turns based upon that, right? So it's not as simple as just saying you should always misdirect. But yeah, if I was teaching a new player, I would say, yeah, misdirect always. But yeah, I heard that point last night and I wanted to mention it now because I thought it was an interesting point. Ghostwheel's not wrong, but there's more nuance to it. But that's okay. As Ghostwheel's a newer player too, then it's understandable. It's definitely not incorrect by any stretch of the imagination. It's just the game's more complicated than just being. We're gonna. Right, so you check the east. So what's the plan now? You're gonna check east. You're gonna check Italy. Okay. The fact that there was no misdirect on the initial location means Bari and Amsterdam are less likely, but good to rule out those extremities. Oh, another hired scouts. Not so good to be drawing these hired scouts early, because they're really useful mid-game. But never mind. Never mind. You take what the deck gives you. And it's not a mistake, because obviously Ghostwheel has no control over the deck. Oh, bingo! Nice. Clermont-Ferrand is not a common first location. It can be a bit tricky though, because if it's quite good against a superhero star actually, because Mina is close to Clermont-Ferrand and Toulouse, like these sort of locations. But if she steps on the wrong place, she could get battered, and bad stuff can start happening to her then. So. Oh, knife though, she's well equipped. Shame that the Holy Bullets is revealed, but again, Ghostwheel has no control over that because those were drawn first. Okay, well, at least Ghostwheel knows where the first location is. We assume it's a vampire because there's a rumor token on it. It could be a fake rumor, of course, but I think, again, as a new player, if you see a rumor token, just assume it's a vampire, but there'll be times where it's not because people will put fake rumors because that can work. You don't have to put a rumor token on a vampire encounter. Okay, trading, that's nice. Yeah. Yeah, not ideal. Especially Clermont-Ferrand's not a commonly checked location, so I'd say that's slightly unfortunate from Roy's perspective, but you have to expect to be found. But I think Roy would have liked a little bit more time hidden than that, but never mind. At least it wasn't his current location, right? So, there's still, Clement Ferrand has got a lot of connections. There's a lot of interesting stuff here that Roy can do in terms of, Marseille Wolf Form, or just goes up what we call the Dracula Highway through all those little small cities at the center of the board. Oh, last white one, very nice. So yeah, it's still a lot of options here. Roy knows that the hunters are going to have to converge on this location, but which hunters are going to move, and once Roy assesses what hunters are moving, then, Drac can maybe capitalize on that and sneak past them, or pounce on Mina if she mispositions slightly. It's going to be really hard because she's got a knife, so she is a bit more difficult to kill, but obviously Dracula doesn't know that. So yeah, the worry here for me when I saw this initially was, right, you found Dracula very early and without the use of newspapers. Is Ghostwheel now just going to kind of autopilot and go, oh, I found the trail, I now need to go after the trail, when really the hunters aren't extremely well equipped. Seward's still down an item, they don't have many events, because a lot of them were hide scouts, so that's the problem. Ghostwheel has no events, for example, right? So the hunters are a little bit undersupplied, so they're just going to be a little bit careful here not to just hyper-focus on Clement Ferrand. They do need to keep supplying. Ghostwheel's not playing with the city numbers. I'm going to have to try to remember to use the names, or try to use my cursor. Actually, let me just double check 1 second. If you're able to see my cursor or not, because that will make a difference to my analysis. Yes, apparently it is being captured. I'm not sure if you're seeing my cursor. Well, I guess we'll find out when we watch this back afterwards. Yeah, because we're just taking a little bit of time just trying to work out who can get them, who needs to move, who doesn't move. All very important. Where could also Dracula be? You got stakes, so that's good. So you're not worrying about that. But that means Mina doesn't have a stake, so it might have to be one of the other two has to go. Okay, Ganami's gone down to Genoa with the rail ticket. That's nice. I guess he'll go and deal with it. Right, Right, Seward's moving as well. Okay, so I'll pause here. So, all Ghostwheel has said at this point, unless I've missed it, if I have, then I apologize, is Gadami and Seward have to move. Okay. Both of them don't have to move. I know there is potential risks here in terms of if one hunter goes, they can't get to Clermont Ferrand because they have, in one more movement because they don't have horses. So they're going to have to go onto Marseille and then onto Clermont Ferrand. There is a risk that there might be something like bats in Marseille and they get caught and pushed away, but because they've moved so early, I don't think it'll be a problem. But I might be wrong. But we'll see how this pans out. But immediately I'm very concerned here about, especially this early on, right? You had two hunters in Vienna. Okay, utilizing the yellow rail to get on Genoa with one hunter, I have no issue with, especially since they both got stakes, right? So sending one stake to deal with this, I think it's great, especially since you don't want to move Mina because there's a risk of bad stuff happening to her. Right. What's the problem? Because both hunters have moved down like this area of the board, the Munich-Vienna connection here, is wide open. Now, obviously, Dracula might not realize you're going to move both hunters down here, but all it takes is for Dracula to go on Clermont-Ferrand, Geneva, Zurich, and can now go into Munich, almost uncontested. Can then go to Zagreb, uncontested, and so on. So you have to be really careful when you move hunters around the board like this. Um, are you exposing yourself to Dracula taking advantage of certain areas which are now empty? Especially since you don't have horses right now, there's a huge risk that these two hunters will move over westward and then they have no movement to get back to the east. Now, if they stay put in Genoa, if someone like Seward, if you move Seward and Godalming, and for example, Godalming goes to deal with Clermont-Ferrand and Seward stays put in Genoa and supplies, it's not the end of the world because Seward can get a yellow 2 ticket to go back up to Vienna quite quickly. But once if Seward moves off Genoa, you've suddenly now got, to like Marseille or something. You're now at least 2 days movement away from Vienna again. You've exposed yourself here. If you got fast horses and both move down, okay, because you can then get back more easily. But they don't have those fast horses. So immediately I'm very concerned about both hunters moving down like this. Is it possible that maybe, Dracula was in Genoa? Yeah, but then you would know it after Godalming's move, and then Seward can then respond if you want to try and take an early fight or something. But I'm really concerned about the fact that now this portion of the board is really wide open. Obviously, Dracula might not be ready for this, so Dracula could be milling about in, I don't know, went from Clermont-Ferrand, Bordeaux, Nantes, and something like, oh, it's going to take me quite a while to get all the way across this way. But Dracula could easily, just as easily, be in Strasbourg now, or Zurich, and now can really take advantage of this portion of the map here being really wide open, and the hunters do not have fast horses to respond, or things like chartered carriages, sense of emergencies, and the like. So just be really careful with this. If you're not under enormous time pressure, if Godalming gets delayed by something in Marseille, it's not the end of the world. He'll still have enough time to get into Clermont-Ferrand. So yeah, I don't like this move. Just because it exposes so much of the board. We've got excellent weather here on Van Helsing to come across to the mainland. I think Ghostwheel made a comment at this point, so I'm just going to listen in, and then I'll come back. Maybe he was in the chat with Roy. I'll come back in a second. I'll come back. I'll comment on that excellent weather in a second. Okay, so Mia's going to rail up to Bordeaux, it seems like. Makes horse economy worse, but it doesn't matter because I haven't got any horses yet. Also, Dracula was not in Bordeaux, so that was slightly fortunate that Dracula wasn't there, because that could have been bad, but got away with it. Good arming doing ticketing, that makes sense. Okay, so it's discarding the ticket. I'm not quite sure why he would discard there. But, okay, it's fine. Okay. Van Helsing just picks the same ticket back up again. I'm just waiting for the comment in chat about excellent weather, and then I can talk about it. This is where the asymmetry of the game is really cool, because obviously as Dracula, you're really worried, going, uh-oh, you've now got Van Helsing over in the mainland too, so you've got 4 hunters, all potentially really close by to me. I could be in a lot of danger. But actually, in reality, not really, because the hunters don't have a lot, they don't have renewed vigor, they don't have sense of emergencies or chartered carriages and stuff to get onto him, so yeah, Dracula's pretty safe here, actually, for the time being. Good. Yep. Yep. Ghostwheel saying because of the timing, 2 movements to get to Clermont-Ferrand with the stake, because then, just in case it's a fighting vamp, you're not going to put Mina at risk unnecessarily. But then, because there's just enough time, you could also do a supply as well. But going to Marseille first, as Ghostwheel said, makes sense, because then you also find out if Dracula went there, and then you can supply, and then go. Just because also, if Dracula is in Marseille, there's some sort of delaying encounter. So there's Roy there learning about excellent weather. It's kind of, yeah, it's... I'm trying to remember exactly how excellent weather is worded. It says 2C moves, right? And the way that C moves is described in the rules is a C move is from a port to a C space to an adjacent C space, or a C space to an adjacent port. So yeah, it's kind of interesting the way it's written. But yeah. So yeah, Roy didn't know exactly how the card works, but that's kind of now good that you've learnt it. Goes with saying it's probably the best use of the card. I don't know exactly what that means, if it means going from London to Le Havre specifically, or going from a port to another port. If it's from a port to another port, I'd probably agree. But there are some times where you do need to move 2C spaces, like from Ionian into Tyrrhenian, if you're trying to catch Dracula and Cagliari or something, or you're trying to chase up to an encounter or something. I'd like to comment on the use of this excellent weather, because again, this is something that throughout the sort of history of the community we've kind of argued about, is this excellent weather usage good or not? I'm of the opinion in general, in the high level play, I would say it's not a good use, because excellent weather is a very valuable event card. There's only 2 of them in the deck, and having that ability to travel 2C spaces, essentially, or do 2C moves, I should say, late in the game, can really catch Dracula off guard, especially if Dracula tries to escape to Britannia, or Dracula goes on to Cagliari, or I've seen it before where Dracula goes east, thinking, oh, the hunters haven't got enough movement, they won't get to me. Then suddenly a hunter with renewed vigor moves normally into Venice, and then uses excellent weather cross to Valona, and then blocks that escape path for Dracula, and then is really close to Dracula and so on. So, as a Dracula player, if I see excellent weather being used very early on, then I'm really happy about it, because it's a card I don't have to worry about late game. However, I will counter this point by saying, in this circumstance, especially with newer players, I don't really mind the use of excellent weather here, because you've got the additional hunter on the mainland already. And if having... I can't remember now what Van Helsing's items are, but if having Van Helsing over here and dealing with encounters allows the other hunters to supply up a bit more, I don't mind that. Because there's too much risk. If Van Helsing sits here in London for a really long time and the other hunters are trying to deal with this trail, they might just get so tangled up, because there's so many different connections in here, you might not find these spaces first time. So you have to make a lot of movements trying to find these spaces, and that means you're not supplying. And then these 3 hunters will be very weak. So if the excellent weather is used to allow Van Helsing to get over quicker, and then to deal with the trail more efficiently, and allow the other hunters to supply up, and they'll find the fast horses and big events, and then they can be really proactive in chasing Dracula, I'm okay with it. So I think that's the thing about it. You need to try and see even though intuitively I would say it's a bad use of excellent weather, there are definitely positive uses of it in this circumstance. So yeah, I don't mind it. I think it's also just because it's also partly because of so many hired scouts and things were drawn early, because obviously they're not events that you keep in your hand, but because Ghostwheel is kind of lacking on events at the moment, I wouldn't use such a powerful event like Excellent Weather right now, because it just makes your hand even weaker, but we'll see how it all pans out in the long run. So again, Gadami doesn't have a weapon, but it doesn't matter, because he can go and deal with the Rumour token. He can then move back on somewhere else and supply. Oh, he's actually going to supply it already. Okay, interesting. After what Ghostwheel said about moving into Marseille first, just decided to supply anyway. 2 Heavenly Hosts, that's still pretty good if you suddenly, top deck a CG now or something, or even then you just still got the Heavenly Hosts available for combat and stuff. Okay, good luck. Not a good card, but never mind. Steward's Supply, okay. Knife, nice. Okay, Lucky Find's good. So Ghostwheel made a very funny comment here. It said, Ghostwheel said, it's fun, not good, but fun. Lucky Find is actually a decent card. It's not top tier in any stretch of the imagination, but it can be really cool. If you are really struggling to find a stake, obviously now there's lots of stakes on the board, but later in the game, if you're really struggling to find a stake and you suddenly get ambushed with a vampire, you can then just use the Lucky Find with the ambush combat to search through the top 5 cards of the deck. And you might get lucky depending on how the item distribution works, and you'll get a stake. You escape that combat, and then you stake the vampire at night. Otherwise, you wouldn't have had that stake. Especially if it's on a small city, it's very hard to supply. Lucky Find's also really good if, for example, you got a Heavenly Host, right? You use the Heavenly Host in one combat, and then if Dracula's still, alive and kicking, or undead and kicking, however you want to think about it, the hunters can then jump on him the next day, and then boom, Lucky Find. And also, Dracula doesn't know what that item is, which is really cool, right? Dracula throughout the game can deduce what items hunters have, but Lucky Find screws with this deduction, which I think is a really neat thing. And again, with really high level of play, that sort of stuff really matters. If it's, two players who have less experience, like in the case of these two, then it's not maybe such a big deal, right? But it is a good card. It's definitely not a bad card at all. So we can just hold on to it for as long as he wants, really. Paris. Okay, so we've got Clermont-Ferrand, Summer House, so either Geneva or Nantes, and then Paris, and then adjacent to Paris. So I'm thinking Dracula might be in Strasbourg now to try to take advantage of the fact that the east is vacated. Okay, Mina's maybe going to Nantes. That's really risky. I assume that Gus was trying to find the encounter between the location between Clermont-Ferrand and Paris. But that also could have been Dracula's current location. And one was if you jump onto Dracula's current location there, you've got no escape route. Very risky play, but Ghostwheel didn't get punished for it. Okay, nice swapping of the Heavenly Host, because you want to have Heavenly Host spread out. A, for combat reasons, but also then for consecrated ground reasons. That's very good. Stake on each. Nice. Both got an Escaper's Bat Weapon, or Anti-Escaper's Bat Weapon, rather. Very nice. Very nice. The Holy Circle is quite nice too, because you can just use it and then play Lucky Find, in a future combat. So my guess would be that Dracula's in Strasbourg right now. That'd be my guess. But we'll have to see. Okay, Van Helsing searching Paris. Yeah, you may as well. Van Helsing does have a weapon, which is actually very scary. But should always use dogs when you're searching encounters, because dogs don't get discarded when you search. Yeah, Van Helsing is not very well equipped, actually. So there's maybe a reason why you don't want to Excellent Weather over with him. You want to supply up for a bit more. Because in Le Havre, you can't supply up, you have to go on to Paris first. Yeah, just get rid of the Aristocratic. That's good. Yeah, obviously Van Helsing's delayed for tomorrow, but it's not a big deal. Right, trying to improve horse economy in preparation of picking up horses. I think that's still absolutely fine. But keeping a 3-2 ticket is also very good. Mina's not on a rail line, though. That's the other problem moving to Nantes like this, that now Mina's off a rail line. So now she's going to have to move back onto a rail line, which is not ideal. I can't remember what ticket she had before. She could have actually railed up to Paris. They could have done a psychic scan tonight. But I think that doesn't really matter. Well, I guess if Jack was in Geneva, we would know if it was different, but Dracula's most likely in Gallia still, so that doesn't tell us anything. The next turn, though, would be really key to try and do a psychic scan. We assumed Dracula would be out of Gallia, but you never know. You never know. If Dracula's trying to be sneaky and goes like Brussels, Strasbourg or something, or the opposite way round, you'd want to know. So yeah, Hunters look a little bit weak in terms of events and things. But there's always time to remedy that. Just a few supplies can change everything. So I assume Gadami's going to go to Marseille today because you need to try and get over to Clermont-Ferrand. Nope, you don't need to use speed. Ghostwheel's questioning the potential usage of Speedy Telegraph. Speedy Telegraph is not really good here. It gives you no advantage. No, Dracula didn't go to Marseille. So it didn't go like Geneva. Okay, I'm not quite sure why Seward is also moving over. Again, it's the same issue as before, right? Seward's now over here. Yeah, he's on a good rail line going north, but Worms of Dracula's now in Nuremberg, right? And then goes to Munich. Seward's going to really struggle to get over here. I think just keeping Seward on this yellow rail line here is really good. You've already got Van Helsing that's on this white rail line. I assume Mina's going to move over here, so she'll be on the yellow, the white rail line as well. I just keep Seward and Genoa because otherwise you're just exposing this eastern portion of the map too much. I'm not sure why Seward moved over. Maybe potentially there might be a trick, but then Seward could have just supplied in Genoa, right? So that's another supply that's lost. So these movements just add up a little bit over time. And now Mina's moving to Clermont-Ferrand. I thought that one of the two boys with the stakes are going to go and deal with it. Okay, I don't understand that move. Just going to Paris would have been better because you could at least psychic scan with Van Helsing, and you'd be on the rail line. So then you could rail the next day. You could rail up to like Cologne or Berlin, depending on what tickets you've got. Or rail to Milan or something like that. Yeah, I don't like this Clermont-Ferrand move. I don't know what the benefit of it is. Especially, is Mina now going to search? Is that the intention? But what if it's a fighting vamp? Mina could just die then, if you're not careful. Okay, I don't mind Seward having a good ticket here, especially if he's going to just stay put on the rail line for a bit. I don't mind that. But yeah, the Hunters really need to supply up. They really, really need to supply. I mean, Van Helsing couldn't because he was delayed, so I'm not worried about that. But yeah, I think just a couple of Hunters here need just to stay put and supply. Because you need to start getting the horses up and running. Yeah, the horse economy is very good. So once those horses do appear, they're going to be rocking and rolling. But just, yeah, you need to get some events as well. Very light on terms of events. And Dracula, I mean, I don't know how experienced Roy is exactly in terms of the physical board game and stuff, but as a Dracula player, you know, if you're looking at this situation going, okay, the Hunters are moving a lot, they're really light on events, you need to try and gain as much advantage as possible in the early portion of the game here, and don't give them time. So as Dracula here, I would not play sneaky at all. I would just run as far away from the Hunters as possible and make them just waste so much time trying to chase you. And they'll chase you very inefficiently because without horses or maybe a big event like Sense of Emergency, they're moving the same speed as you. And you've already got a lead on them. And they're having to deal with encounters. So if you play delaying encounters like Bats and Saboteur, maybe even Bodyguards if you hit the right person, they're going to be slowed down even more. And you got wolf form as well. Dracula's not wolf forming. Oh no, Dracula's just layering. That makes sense. Good. Okay, so Ghostwheel just said 3 spaces away from Paris is a big deal, and I completely agree. So that's good. That's a good. In that sense, that's really good that Ghostwheel is identifying that there is an issue here in terms of Dracula has gained quite a bit of distance, and the Hunters might struggle to sort of catch up quickly. But again, this is why I really feel there should still be a Hunter sitting here because it means that Dracula can't just freely go all the way to Prague and then through Vienna or even a Munich move is very risky because then suddenly Seward sitting here could just draw an evil presence on local rumors and find him, and then that plan's all foiled. Um, I never know. Or Seward might just luck into an heroic leap, and then heroic leap Dracula, and suddenly Dracula's down 5 health, and that might be important. Yeah, I don't understand why Mina went to Clermont Ferrand there when she didn't even search it. That makes no sense to me at all. Doesn't make any sense, I'm afraid. If Mina's going to go to Geneva now by the looks of it, but Mina could have just gone Paris, Psychic Sand, and then went to Geneva anyway, so... Okay, Seward's going to move up to... He could. You can go to Zurich, but you can just save your rail ticket and move by road. You don't have to spend the rail ticket there, but never mind. So yeah, didn't go through Zurich. Unlikely to have been the case. But now it's closer to Munich, so I think Seward here is just still in a decent position going to Zurich there, even though he didn't supply, because he can just go to Munich, and he can just stay put on Munich then and supply for ages. So that's good. Van Helsing has to supply here. Good, good. Okay, unfortunate item draw, but yeah, just you need to supply up with him because he's just if he gets into any sort of combat, he's useless. Oh, money trail, that's nice. Not good right now, but still a big event for later. So I think that's still a very good find there. You won't complain about seeing a money trail. Good. So what the Hunters can do now is they can deal with 2 encounters in 1 day. So they're actually getting ahead of Dracula in terms of the rate he's putting down encounters. Which is always nice to see. Okay, not ambushing. Good. So Roy knows not to ambush normally with encounters. That's good. So we'll see. Is it actually a vampire? Was it an aristocratic or was it a fighting one? It was actually a fighting one. So Roy could have ambushed with that. But maybe to bait a hunter into a night fight with no stake, I still think that's a good idea. Okay, nice ticket. Although, probably going to Munich, you don't need the ticket, but that's okay. Okay, so this is interesting. So Ghost was saying, who is light on events? Mina has no events, so I'm going to give events to Mina. Okay. I don't dispute, the idea of like you want to try and have hunters with events because it does make Dracula scared of that hunter. But in the case of Mina, where she's already having to reveal one event anyway, you're not really hiding as much. And also the fact in this case, the way Ghostwheel's talking is that you want to give both events over to Mina, but you don't want to give Money Trail over to Mina because ideally Money Trail should be on Godalming because he wants to play it first. In this case, ironically, with 2 Speedy Telegraphs, Money Trail could kind of be on anybody, and you can use Speedy Telegraph, to then play Money Trail first in the turn. I was also going to say, right, Speedy Telegraph, I didn't say this earlier when the Speedy Telegraph comment came up. Speedy Telegraph is probably one of the hardest events to use in the game because its strength is not... Breaking the Hunter Order is very strong, but sometimes it's very hard to understand when breaking the Hunter Order is going to be very advantageous. A lot of the time what I see is Hunter players will play Speedy Telegraph and then they'll do nothing different. They'll just play the turn normally. You only want to play Speedy Telegraph when... probably 3. If checking a location with a hunter who is not Godalming first, right? So if you want to check a location with Mina or Seward or something like that, and that location has to be checked first by them, is vital. That's one way you use Speedy Telegraph. Secondly, you use Speedy Telegraph because you're about to jump onto Dracula and you want to maybe do a supply with an out of position hunter first because you know they will never be in the fight. So you may as well just supply with them and you might luck into a hired scouts or something which will then help you find Dracula's location more easily. Or, and this is the main way that you use Speedy Telegraph, is you use Speedy Telegraph to combo with other events. You use Speedy Telegraph to enhance the effect of Hypnosis, because you can get Mina to play it first, and then all the other hunters can react and move. Same with Money Trail, right? You play Money Trail first, and then all the other hunters can respond to whatever the Money Trail tells you. You use it for Van Helsing to trade important events like a forewarned onto a hunter first, and then that hunter moves into Dracula's location like a forewarned or something. So that's how Speedy Telegraph itself is a strong card, but it's not, because often breaking the hunter order isn't as vital as you'd think. But if you can combo it with lots of other events, it's potentially game ending. So yeah, I wouldn't rush here to give events over to Mina. I would supply once more with Van Helsing first, and then maybe give her 2 events. But never mind. It is what it is. Still, Dracula's going to be saying, "Oh, what's that second event that Mina has? Hopefully it's nothing really potent. I'm scared of Mina now." Right? So you can sort of psychologically affect how Dracula plays, because if Dracula sees a hunter with 3 or 4 events, then Dracula might be very scared, but those events might be absolutely awful or not useful in that current moment. Good to reveal the rifle because it is the weaker weapon, but then now the problem is you're telling Dracula that the holy bullets are relevant, so it's a bit unfortunate. But again, that's not really Ghostwheel's fault because the holy bullets were supplied first. That's kind of why I'm saying that Mina should have supplied one more turn to get rid of those holy bullets, and then now you have something else in their place. But it's okay. Holy bullets are so strong. Maybe Mina might be able to find a way to use them. If you can get into a really good fight with Dracula with 3 hunters, it doesn't really matter if the holy bullets are revealed. If Dracula doesn't manage to break Mina's rifle, she can trigger it and do a lot of damage. Oh, I just missed Ghostwheel's comment. Sorry, I got distracted. Yeah, okay, so it's kind of a contradictory comment there, saying that they got Dracula contained, not in terms of. Well, it depends on where Dracula is, obviously. We're not quite sure where Dracula is. But if Dracula's looking to move east and has a very potent wolf form in the next 1 or 2 turns, then you don't really have him contained. And yeah, Dracula is building up his trail, but if you can get multiple hunters onto locations like you've just done, you're going to chip away at his trail quicker than he can place down encounters. So in the long run, it'll work out for you. The big problem is you don't know where Dracula is, so I'm worried there's going to be a lot of inefficient movement trying to find where Dracula is, and then you're not supplying. But yeah. Right, so yeah, I remember this comment. It made me chuckle. So Ghostwheel said just now, it's hard to keep track of where the hunters were, and then therefore by extension, then try to work out could Dracula be in this location and so on. So the counter argument to that would be if you don't move your hunters, then you don't have to remember. If you keep the hunters very very still, it's very easy to remember where they were. But I know it's really hard, and in the moment, it's very easy to overlook where a certain hunter was at a certain period of time, or there's an evil presence triggers, and a couple turns later, wait, who was it adjacent to? Where was that hunter at that time? Yeah, it's very hard to keep track. Mr. X interesting. I wonder what that location is. Yeah, yes, yeah. Poor man's wolf form, as Strider would say. That's what Mr. X is. The Mr. X is kind of interesting here because it, based upon the center of the map, it can make Dracula very easy to you know, the Hunters could easily lose Dracula's trail here if they're not careful, but it means it's an encounter fewer for the Hunters to deal with. So it depends on how things turn out. It might be worth it, it might not be. Um, but yeah, Godami has to go and supply up because he's down an item. I really would send. I would really send Seward to Munich here. I don't like him being moved anywhere else. Uh, at least you're in a big city now, but yeah, I think Munich's more important because now, if Dracula has gone east or southeast, Seward's gonna find it more difficult to get down here. Whereas if you're on Munich, you know you can go north or south quite a little bit more easily. If you see my point, I would just send Seward to Munich and just park in there and supply for a few turns just to get some events into your hand. You're not under a huge amount of pressure. There's no rumor token, especially since Dracula has misdirected location off the trail. That's one encounter fewer to deal with. You don't have to find Dracula right now, so I would just say park the bus, supply up a bit. You know, spread your hunters out a little bit. Have Seward here in Munich. Have two hunters here. I don't know where Mina could go. Maybe she could go into Paris too if she wants, or she could rail up to like Cologne or something. But just just park the bus a little bit, supply up, get strong events, and take it from there. You're not under huge pressure. Have one hunter move. Hey, horses, nice. That's good. That's good. That's what we want to see. Long night. We don't want to see that. That's very unfortunate. Very unfortunate. Okay, interesting. So yeah, hiding the holy bullets. Hopefully Dracula didn't see the holy bullets. You never know. Dracula might forget if Roy's not taking notes. Dracula could easily forget about those holy bullets down the line. Okay. Ooh, no Strasbourg. Oh, that's interesting. Is Strasbourg the misdirect location then? Did Dracula go like Brussels, Strasbourg then? Yeah, has to be. Huh. That's very interesting. I don't know if misdirecting Strasbourg, you kind of want to misdirect the place after Strasbourg, but obviously you can't misdirect your current location, right? So that would have been possible. Interesting. My guess would be that Dracula's just sitting in. Maybe he's not sitting in Munich now because of the risk that Sue could have jumped on him. Maybe Dracula's like in Prague now then. He's going to go into Vienna. That'd be my guess. But we'll see if that's the case. So I think this is where I left, if I remember rightly. This is the point where I left. I said, okay, I don't want to watch any more of this now, just on the off chance. I do spectate this. I don't know what this item trade's all about. You're giving Godalming horses, but based upon you've only left a garlic with him, he's going to supply again. But what was if Godalming supplies a horse? Because he supplies double. He's got a very good chance of picking up another horse, and you have to trade it back to Van Helsing. I'm not sure about that. I think you either give the horse to Godalming with Heavenly Host and Rifle still, and then Godalming just charges off and tracks down Dracula, because he can get to Nuremberg in one turn. Or you give the horse to Van Helsing with Heavenly Host and Rifle, and he goes off to fight Dracula, and you keep Godalming there because he can supply double. I think this kind of half and half is not a good idea, but we'll see. So if I remember rightly, I think this is where I left. I don't think I've seen any more. So everything else that happens from now on is brand new to me. And the horses can be used immediately, so that's really nice. Okay, so Ghostwheel said that everybody will supply, except Mina, who will go to Brussels. I don't mind that. One hunter moves, the other three supply. I have problems potentially based upon movement. If Dracula's now in Munich and he wolf forms, like to Sarajevo, these hunters are so far away initially. But, you know, or even wolf forms like Florence or something, you know, then the hunters are going to really struggle to find him. But, you know, at least they're going to be supplying, which makes me happy. That's it. As I said at the beginning, you know, it's very easy for me to sit here in hindsight. But I said I don't know the result of this game, so we'll see if it could all still very easily pan out in Ghostwheel's favor here. But I'd say the game's pretty even. Obviously, the issue here is that as a Dracula player, with the asymmetry, Roy, or whoever the Dracula player is, has to realize that the hunters are maybe a bit mispositioned, or they're struggling because they don't have fast horses, or they don't have events, or whatever. And okay, so Ghostwheel is trying to predict where the. Okay, good, good, good. Yep, all plausible places. Ghostwheel did say that Drac could have slipped past and then sort of highlighted Prague there, so that's good. That's good intuition there. That maybe you've let Dracula slip through the net. Um, but I'd say, yeah, the important thing here is not to panic. Dracula's not wolf forming, which maybe supports the theory that Dracula's actually up north, or doesn't feel threatened by the hunters. Is just going to take his time, go on his merry way without having to wolf form. There's no pressure. Whereas if you wolf form, you might make the hunters clock on to the idea that maybe he is really far away or is be able to slip past you. If you just play it cool, then maybe you might not draw attention to it. We'll see. We'll see. As I said, both of these players had won a game before this one. Roy actually won the previous Dracula game that they played, which is good. So trying to go for a second Dracula win here. And in the reverse matchup, Ghostwheel beat Roy playing as Dracula. So Ghostwheel here is trying to go 2-0 against Roy. Okay, Rumor Token. Good to put the pressure on, I'd say. That's nice, especially with the misdirect and everything. There are the horses. Thankfully, Darby could just triple horse this. Okay, this is not too bad actually. Mina can just move to Paris, and they can trade all those horses across. So that's fine. Seward has another gun. That's really nice. He's very strong. Oh, Mystic Research. Oh, that's amazing in this situation when you're lacking on events. Nice. Nice. You see, just a couple supplies and things can really flip in your favour. Yeah, just keep supplying. Go for it. Supply, 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 supply. Behind the Veil. Nice. Okay. We'll see what the... Okay. A couple of vamps, hoax, rats, and a fog. Let's see what Ghostwheel gets rid of here. I'd say you get rid of the fog here because you just don't have any full. Good. You got no forewarned, so you can't counter the fog, whereas you can counter vampires. Yoink. Send Mina to Paris. You have to send Mina to Paris here because then she can trade, and then she can go to Brussels the next day, or somebody else can go to Brussels the next day, right? You're not under pressure to go to Brussels today. Trading those horses is just so good. You have 3 horses ready to go. Also, the fact that then Mina has 2 weapons, you can make Godalming and Van Helsing's hands stronger here because now you're gonna have one with 2 horses. So how you're gonna have to trade with somebody else now. I guess Van Helsing could go on to Brussels tomorrow and trade with Mina, but I think just trading everything in one day is just better. That's just my opinion. And then, Van Helsing could be going to Nuremberg tomorrow, Godalming could go to Zurich tomorrow, or goes to Cologne tomorrow. I think the movement would just be a little bit more efficient. That's just my opinion. There's a Mystic Research, that's really nice. Very nice indeed. Yeah, I'll keep that yellow too, actually, even though it mess up horse economy. You can get to Prague or Munich with that, which is good. So yeah, not bad at all. Not bad at all. It goes with who's seen the trade that needs to be made. That's good. That's nice. Yeah, and hopefully this Mystic Research will really help. Now, the fact you can just keep supplying up at night. That's gonna be really good. I would probably just keep the Speed Telegraph on you, or Long Night on Seward. Just have, because then you got. I know Van Helsing's going to use up the Mystic Research, but Desecrated Soil. Okay, unfortunate that Mina can't deal with it. And it's right after Behind the Veil as well. So you've lost a lot of information from that Behind the Veil. But never mind. But yeah, Ghostwheel's right here in that could just mature because Dracula at the moment doesn't seem to be taking damage from anything, so the healing is not going to be very good. Dracula could just wolf form now just to try and get a bit of healing, but it's only one health of healing. It's not the end of the world. So yeah. But you know, if Mina had gone to Paris and they traded all those horses around, there's just a chance that then whichever one of those hunters went on to Brussels tomorrow might have had the Heavenly Host to deal with it. Even though Dracula would still get the encounter cards and such. It's not the end of the world. You know, that's not game breaking in any way. I'm just looking at efficiency stuff, but it's not the end of the world. It's not game breaking. And that's kind of the thing, right? When you're also trying to look at these things, trying to think about the critical mistakes and the mistakes which are there, but they're not so much of a big deal. Especially when you're playing against somebody who is similar experience level to you, and there's also they're not going to capitalize on those mistakes potentially as much as an experienced player would. And sometimes it doesn't matter, right? Because maybe one player might make lots of little mistakes during the game, but all it takes is one big mistake towards the end, and it can swing very much in the other player's direction, right? So, it's that's just the way it can go sometimes. But it's definitely looking up now. The fact that the Huns have all the horses, they've got a Mystic Research to get some extra events. Yeah, it's and they got a stake to deal with this rumor token. And there's not a lot of stakes in the discard pile, but at the same time, maybe Roy's thinking that a lot of the stakes are in the deck still. Obviously, that rumor token matures. And it takes us maybe then a couple of hunter deaths or something. Then Dracula could easily pick up a win. We'll have to see. We'll have to see. Okay, Dracula's still on land, so it makes me think that Dracula's not north. He could be north. Could have gone like Cologne, Hamburg, Berlin, Prague, or across Frankfurt way, or could be down now in Zurich. Yeah, we'll have to see. As I said, at this point, I don't know where Dracula is at this point, so I'm playing the game with you. Yeah, but this is good that Ghostwheel's taking the time that Dracula's taking their turn. Ghostwheel is sitting there looking at all the possible Okay, nice horse move. The problem is Gadami's running around with no weapon, which I really don't like. I think if Mina was there, they could have done a trade a very specific way that there'd be a weapon. I don't like the Frankfurt move. I think Nuremberg's better because I think you can backtrack to Frankfurt if you need to, whereas now you haven't really found a lot of information that way. But yeah, I think Munich is vital. Munich is a vital check. Oh no, not Munich. Okay, so it could be like Prague or something, unless Dracula somehow. No, Leipzig was no Dracula. Okay, not Cologne. Okay. Is Mina going to go with Van Helsing? Yes. Okay, that's good. That they can. Good. Give Mina a horse. Excellent. That's good. That's good. Because you could also psychic scan as well, or you could, if you don't want to psychic. I think actually psychic scanning is pretty good here. So you could trade with Van Helsing with the items, not events, and then Mina psychic scans. I really like that actually. Um, because as soon as if you see it's not Germania, then immediately there's only a couple places. It's only Zurich and Vienna are basically the two places you have to check. Um, but if you play Mystic Research, I also don't mind that. Because Mystic Research is good for you. Oh, there's only 300 events on the bottom. That's a tad unfortunate. That's a tad unfortunate. Um, but never mind. At least the Mystic Research has been played, right? That's really important. Amina's trading. Okay, I still think Psychic Scanning would have been better, and you trade otherwise. Good. Give the Holy Bullets to... That's good. Oh, okay, right. Okay, this is a really small thing, but it's actually something that is really cool in this instant. Right, okay, so... So you'll notice there's this little symbol here on the rifle of Mina. This is because this is the card that is revealed for Mina. What you can do, which is really neat here, is you can give like the Holy Bullet. I don't mind Van Helsing having the Holy Bullets. I think Mina having knife and rifle rather than rifle Holy Bullets is better. So I haven't got a problem with that. But what you can do here, which is really cool, is you give the Holy Bullets over to Van Helsing. You give Mina's rifle over to Van Helsing, and it would still have the symbol on it, showing this is the card that Mina had revealed. And then you give Van Helsing's rifle, the unrevealed rifle, to Mina. Because now Mina has a rifle, but Dracula doesn't know that she has the rifle, and then you once you've done that trade, the game would ask you, what card would you like to reveal? Because obviously the revealed card has been taken off Mina. So then you'd say, I'd like to reveal Fire's horses, please, and Mina has a rifle, and Dracula doesn't know that she has a rifle. So it's a very small wee thing, but you could really mess with Dracula's head that way. And you're actually then hiding a lot more stuff from Dracula, which is really cool. Again, it's not the end of the world. It's not the be-all and end-all. Okay, so Dracula matures it, but obviously gets no health benefit. I think Dracula probably just should have wolf formed yesterday, just on the off chance that then the hunters let that go. And then Dracula would have got a little bit of healing back, plus the benefit of wolf form. But once again, it's not the end of the world. Not the end of the world. Also, the way the trail slides. Ghostwheel just said, I wish I was writing some of this stuff down. You can write stuff down. There's nothing in the rules saying you can't make notes. I make notes when I play. I don't often write notes about where locations are. I feel like I've got a pretty good memory for it. But if I'm really struggling to check certain places, I will write down all the possible locations in terms of the numbers. And as I check them, I tick them off. I haven't done that so much recently. I'm finding as I play, I take fewer notes now. I don't know why that is. But also I'm losing more games than I used to, so maybe I should make more notes. I think that's more. I think the fact I'm losing games is not because of my note taking. I think it's just because people are just playing better, and then maybe I'm playing worse. That's also definitely a factor. So yeah, there's only really two. Okay. Now you're wolf forming. I think wolf form's really good here. You can get really far away from the hunters. Yep, I don't think you need to play Speed Telegraph. I think that's fine. Just play normally, I'd say. Oh, problem is now Mina has to reveal the money trail. So it's not really ideal. You'd rather play the money trail, the Speed Telegraph from Van Helsing. That's okay. I don't think you need Speed Telegraph here, but again, it's not game breaking. I don't think. Not at the moment, anyway. We'll see if you miss that Speed Telegraph later. But yeah, I think priority checks are Zurich and Vienna. You need to work out if Dracula's going east or if Dracula's going south. And then the other two hunters can respond based upon, or the other three hunters depending on what order. Oh, careful. Don't accidentally click Psychic Scan if you don't mean to. Select cards. Covers now, Dracula knows you got fast horses. That's fine, it's not a big deal. Okay. I don't know if I like the... Well, I mean, you do need to find Nuremberg. I think it was going to be Nuremberg anyway, right? So I don't... The problem is now she doesn't have a stake. So is she going to deal with that vamp? Is Gadami could have just gone and dealt with it. See, I don't like that move. I don't think it's worth Speed Telegraph to do that, but that's okay. That's the problem. That's the thing with the hunter move. You need to think about why are you moving a hunter there. I'm not disputing the fact that a hunter has to go to Nuremberg. Should Mina really be the one who does that? Mina should have gone to Zurich. If you want to move Mina first to check Zurich, I'm okay with that. Because then Kadami can go to Nuremberg, and then Seward can respond. He can go to like Milan or Vienna or something like that, and then Van Helsing can back up as well. So I think that's the thing. But again, that's okay. It's experience. And the thing is, the hunters have such a steep learning curve because you've got all these events you've got to try and get your head around, and you're controlling 4 hunters at once, and you're trying to find a guy who's obviously moving with hidden stuff. So yeah, it's again, this is not in any way me trying to just bitch and complain. It's all in the spirit of just trying to inform and educate. Yeah, I think just send Van Helsing to Zurich. Problem is now you can't back out. Not Berlin. I think again Berlin's like the last place you'll check because you might catch him north, but the thing is you need to check worst case scenario. The worst case scenario is that Dracula is going south. And imagine if Dracula's south and he is now Zurich, Marseille, Toulouse. He could be as far as Madrid or Alicante right now, or Santander. If he's gone east, then it's Prague, Vienna, let's say Zagreb. He could be as far as Valona, Sofia, Klausenberg right now, even Bucharest, depending on which way he goes. That's a huge portion of the board that Dracula could be hiding in right now, so you need to find that ASAP. Good move. Okay, so we know that Dracula went east. Okay, then that is good information. Yeah, I just feel Seward should have gone there first, or maybe second, depending on if someone checks Zurich. So I think then, because of that, Mina's move would have been a little bit better. I mean, maybe not. Maybe based upon positioning, it wouldn't have mattered. Ooh, I'm really surprised that Roy's not ambushing with those vamps, because you could get a point or two out of it. But trying to bait hunters into night fights with reckless vampires is still not a bad idea. Yep, Mystic Research. Nice to do that. Good choice. Good choice indeed. That's very unfortunate. That is very unfortunate. That's not the card you want to be seeing. And that's nothing that Ghostwheel can control. Yeah, I think Seward can push forward into the east then, and another hunter can deal with Vienna. I haven't got a problem with that. Try to return. You haven't got an ally, but hopefully get an ally at some point. No. Okay, not Psychic Scan. It's possible that Dracula could Dracula have been in Germania? I think that's impossible, but better to be safe than sorry. Okay. Well, at least you know you're going east, so there's a clear direction. So that's really good. Godalming could go to Vienna and resupply up there with Mystic Research. Van Helsing can move in. Sud can move further in. Yeah, really lucky. I mean, lacking on the events, that's for sure. Very unfortunate just to be. Yeah. That's the thing. Maybe it won't matter, right? Because if you jump on Dracula and you have enough weaponry, then you can just kill Drab. You need to get enough hunters onto him. That's the problem. So yeah, we'll have to see. We'll have to see. Okay, Dracula's still moving. Makes sense. Shame there's no consecrated ground or something, because you could potentially force Dracula into you, but that could easily swing. Good. Oh, Dracula's in Zagreb. Whoa. Yeah. I'd probably say that's a little bit ill-advised to have gone there. Ooh. Yeah, because that's a place where the Huns. Wait, what did Dracula do? Dracula went Budapest, and then war formed to Sarajevo, and then backtracking to Zagreb. Ooh. Yeah, I'd say that's slightly ill-advised. I wouldn't recommend Dracula doing that. Yeah, this could be curtains. This could be over very fast now. Um, yeah, especially with the lucky find as well. Damn, that is quite the stroke of luck. Yeah, with me. Oh, yeah, yeah. You either move Van Helsing to Vienna to be closer to the action, or you just supply with him. Because you might just luck into, like, a Sister Agatha or something. I know it's very unlikely, but you never know. Okay, good by Roy there to admit it was a bad play. I think that's really important too. That if you make a bad play, it's right to that you admit to it and realize that there's probably not the right move. But yeah, moving somewhere that hunters are potentially going to check is not a good idea. The reason why I'll explain why in a little bit, especially for Roy's benefit, right? Maybe Roy's already realized it, but just in case, or for anybody else. So the hunters are going to pour into the east now, right? Because they know that you've gone east. Munich was blocked, so there's no way that you can be west of Vienna, Munich, right? So you're definitely going east. There's just too much of a risk that any hunter here will just move, especially the fact that you've got horse movement here from Munich into Zagreb. It's just too likely that Zagreb is going to get checked really quickly, because Dracula could have easily gone Vienna Zagreb, right? So they're doing it to get into the east, but also Zagreb is a really good move because they're going to check: did you go Vienna Budapest or did you go Vienna Zagreb? Um, it's maybe a little bit unlucky that Godalming went there because Godalming was down an item, so there's always an argument to be maybe um um you know, Godalming might have gone to Vienna, so then he could have resupplied at night. And maybe, if that was the case, it's possible that Mina alone might have jumped into Zagreb, which is then a different story. But still, it's a very risky move to go in here. And then what are you going to do? Go to Munich? What happens if Munich was occupied? Because Godalming could have easily gone, I'm just going to move into Munich and supply there instead of going. Or if he rolls slow horses and he moves into Munich, then suddenly Dracula's trapped behind his own trail because Budapest is on the trail, Sarajevo's on the trail, Vienna's on the trail, and then Munich's blocked. You're now completely trapped. So what you're gonna have to do, you're gonna have to try and hide and hope, and you got no wolf form to get out of that situation. So yeah, I don't recommend backtrack. I mean, backtracking can work, but not in this circumstance when you know the hunters are directly coming towards you like this, right? It's a really bad idea. Well, Roy realized it. Risk it for a biscuit, exactly. Yeah. Sometimes you do have to take risks. I would say Roy did not have to take risks in this circumstance because Roy was actually in a pretty, not like in a game-winning position or anything, but was not in a bad position at all. Didn't have any points, but there's still a trail to be dealt with. The hunters didn't have a lot of big events, right? Yeah, fuck it. Just play the lucky find. Get rid of the stake. Find something really good. Oh, second heavenly host. That'll do the trick. Yeah, this is this could be curtains for Dracula here. Yeah, if they can all trigger their heavenly hosts and things, good. Get rid of the stake. Nice, nice. I know there might be a vampire in the east, but if you can kill Drac here, it doesn't matter. Dracula can escape his bat round 3. Exactly, good. So Ghostwheel knows that, has just said so. Obviously, Dracula can escape his bat against Godalming, but if he dies before that even happens, then it doesn't matter. So maybe just go with Godalming. Probably just go gun ho and play Heavenly Host because if he fanged you out of combat, then it doesn't really matter because he can escape his bat against you anyway. So that removes that risk. But at the same time, if you want to go punch, I completely respect that. I think also it's quite likely that Dracula might fang Godalming because he knows Godalming has no weapon because of the Wolves reveal. Unless it was all bait, of course. I would punch here as Mina because if Mina gets mesmerized, it could cause trouble. Never mind, not mesmerizing Mina. Okay, mesmerizing Seward blocks the knife. Could have played Heavenly Host there, but it's okay. I completely understand why you don't, because if Seward gets removed from the combat, then suddenly the Hunter's combat strength is not very strong. It's okay, but it's not game ending. Okay, so they've done 3 damage to Drac. So they've got to try to, yeah, try and do as much as possible this turn if they can. Yeah, so Dracula will actually die here if he doesn't fang either Godalming or Seward or Strength Mina. Fanging Mina, that's unfortunate. Well, that's a GG. Yeah, okay, that makes sense why. I was like, because I looked at the time when I paused the video last. I was like, there's only 10 minutes left. Something big's going to have to happen. Yep. And as Dracula, you can die that quickly if you're not ready for it. And then if combat cards don't work in your favor and such. Wow, huge win for Ghostwheel. Holy moly. Okay. Very good. Well played, got me good. So like, man, that game just ended in such a strange way. Okay, so I mean, okay, right. Positives, right? GG Ghostwheel. You got full IDS victory. Another win on the board. First win as Hunters. Really nice, right? So I can't take anything away. You know, you got the victory. That's all that matters at the end of the day, right? That's really good. But hopefully Ghostwheel kind of appreciates in this situation that it was a very unconventional victory, right? That Ghostwheel didn't win with like this epic play with these events and all this sort of thing. It was just Dracula moved into a position which he really shouldn't have been in. Um, and you were able to, and you capitalized on it very well, right? With the combat, and you did enough damage, and Dracula fanged the wrong hunter and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, I mean that was well played. But yeah, I think you realize that from a hunter perspective, the hunters conceded a lot of early positioning would be the way I'd phrase it, because of the way that this was left wide open, and Dracula was able just to sneak all the way through here, basically uncontested. Yeah, I don't quite know what happened here with why it was necessary to wolf form. There was no need to. I think Dracula was in a very safe position. Eventually, Dracula would have realized, oh crap, they've got horses, they're catching up with me. But depending on what encounters are here, they might get slowed down by saboteurs and the like. If Dracula is really scared and Dracula wolf forms onto a coast and then instantly leaves, I fully respect it. I fully respect that's the case. But, if Dracula had a fog, the hunters didn't have forewarned, there was no consecrated ground, there was no renewed vigor, no sense of emergencies and things, so maybe you might only get one or two hunters on you. Van Helsing was a little bit behind, Seward doesn't have fast horse movement, even though he's very strong. I think that's kind of the thing, right? You need to realize that Seward doesn't have fast horses, so and he's also the strongest hunter in terms of combat strength, right? So you want to be as far away from him as possible, because he's never getting into the fight. So yeah, being here is a position you never want to be in. So yeah, the Hunters conceded a lot of early positioning to Drac, but again, we'll look at positives, right? Fundamentals are good in terms of supplying during the day, ticketing at night. Got the horse economy set up really well, and the horse economy was working really well towards the end. That Mina and Godalming both got into this position, and there was no white yellow one or anything. Item distribution was pretty good. There was some really awkward stuff at the beginning, but again, that's not Ghostwheel's fault, because the item deck will just do what the item deck does, and you have to work around it. These three hunters were strong. I still think Godalming should have had a weapon in this combat, but then again, there was the whole stake thing here, but maybe Van Helsing could have had the stake, so Van Helsing could have been staking this, while then Godalming has another weapon. He could have been Escaper's bat against. Imagine if if Dracula fangs Seward in round 2, Seward's taken out of the combat, and then Dracula escapes his bat against Godalming. He wouldn't have his wolf form, which would be, but still, then suddenly, is he in the east? Is he this way? And they've used up quite a lot of strength trying to deal with him. They got to try and deal with these encounters and chase after him. I'm not saying Dracula would win, but it's a that could have been quite a bad scenario there, right? Or if wolf form hadn't been used, Dracula can escape his back into the castle, then wolf form out, and all this sort of stuff, right? There's a lot of things that could happen. So it was just a case of, the hunters got into a really good position. They had one opportunity to jump on Drac, and they did, and they got him. And that's really good from a hunter's perspective. You were well equipped to deal with that, and it's a good sign that you don't need very strong events to get on Drac. You just need to have the fundamentals right in terms of movement and items. Sometimes events will be weak for you, but you can work around that potentially. Yeah, hopefully Goes will realize a little bit here, how bad this game could have gone against them, in terms of if Dracula was able to get really deep into the east here, throw down some delaying stuff, potentially get another rumor token down in time. Hunters wouldn't have had a stake to deal with it. Anything could have happened at that point. And then you're suddenly going into the third week, and Dracula's maybe got 6 or 7 points. Do they have it? And then that's the thing. Would then the weak events catch up on the hunters then? Because they don't have the big stuff to jump on Dracula when it really counts. But also then Dracula has to realise that the hunters maybe aren't really well equipped in terms of events, and maybe can then take some slightly riskier stuff, or go for 1v1 fights, because that you're not going to have planned ambushes and heroic leaps and stuff thrown at you. It's very hard to know that in the moment, obviously. But there's lots of really interesting early stuff. Just be really careful with hunter movement in terms of not letting certain parts of the map open. Dracula did really well in realizing that this part of the map was open, so then took advantage of it, which is really good. Um, just kind of let it slip a little bit. But also, it's a really good lesson there for Roy to have learned in terms of if you misposition once as Dracula, the hunters can just kill you that easily. Then all the previous week, 2, 3 weeks of gameplay, inside the game is the last 1 or 2 hours worth of playing is then just down the drain because you you lose in an instant. That's the thing. Hunters don't lose as quickly as Dracula. Hunters have to lose over a prolonged period of time because you need to have 2 rumor token matures, or you need to have a rumor token mature plus a couple of hunter deaths, and those things don't happen exceedingly quickly. They can do, but it's very rare that's the case. Whereas Dracula just getting killed very quickly in one combat, yeah, that can easily happen. So you just got to be really careful with your positioning. So yeah, it was definitely an interesting one. Good to see, 2 new players in the community playing the game and having a bit of banner in the chat. And as I said before, the little bit that I've spoken to them, they seem to have the right attitude about it. It's a big thing coming into the community and basically playing no practice games and you're thrown into a tournament, and it is a tournament obviously that people want to win, right? But at the same time, the way I would always approach it for a newcomer is don't stress about the sort of tournament aspect to it. Just think of it as in the sense of I'm guaranteed 16 games of Fury of Dracula, right? 8 as Hannah's 8 as Dracula. And during those 16 games, I'm going to improve. I'm going to play against different people of different skill levels. Some games I'll win, some games I'll lose, and I'll learn lots of stuff from it. And ultimately, a lot of the best players in the community that we have now are people who maybe at the beginning struggled a bit and their win rate wasn't very good, but then now they've just built up a lot of that experience and they've gone through that learning process. And they're now, some of the stronger players in the community, and they're winning a lot of their games, and they're a real threat. So, yeah, it's so yeah. Don't. I know it can be a bit demoralizing when you look at the league table and go, "Oh, I'm at the bottom. I haven't won many games," but don't worry about it. It's fine. Ultimately, at the end of the day, if you're playing in the tournament, then you always get full respect from me, and the win-loss record really, it's not the end of the world. It's a game. It should be fun. If you're having fun and you're learning stuff from it, then ultimately that's the most important thing. It's not meant to be this. Even though it is very serious and we take it seriously, it is all in the name of fun. If the fun stopped, then we just wouldn't do it anymore. So yeah, hopefully this has been insightful for the 2 players who were involved, but particularly Ghostwheel, because obviously it was Ghostwheel's perspective, and hopefully everyone at home, you enjoyed it. Enjoyed my ramblings and various views on things. Feel free to leave any comments down below. And yeah, I will see you very soon for another game from the League of Dracula. Whether it be a live game or post-game analysis again, we'll have to see. But see you for another video very soon, hopefully. And otherwise, check out the links in the description of all the other people. And if you're not in the community, the link's down there for the community, and you can find out when we're going live, and you can keep up to date with how the tournament is progressing. So, take care, everybody. Thank you very much for watching. GG to both players again, and I'll see you all in another video very soon. Take care. Bye-bye.